Hi everybody and welcome back to my YouTube channel. Today we're talking all about things you should know before moving to London. If you didn't know, I recently moved house. I'm now living in Brixton and I vlogged the whole process. It really was a journey and I have learnt some things, so I'm here to share those with you today. If you are new here, hi, my name's Amber. I went to the University of Greenwich and I'm now living in London with my boyfriend. I make videos all about London life, productivity, with some weird fashion bits sprinkled in there every now and again, which I think I'm going to take a little bit of a step back from because I'm buying far too many clothes. But that's what this channel is all about, so if you do like the sound of any of that, be sure to subscribe down below. Okay, so jumping straight into it, I think the first thing to know about London is that it is a commuting city, and I think that impacts where you live quite a lot depending on your circumstances. So in terms of like the tube, the bus, whether you want to cycle somewhere, whether you're happy walking, or whether you are gonna like get a train into central London, is all very dependent on obviously where you work, what things you want to be close to, and how you want to get there. For me personally, I am a tube girl. It was really important for me to live close to a tube station so that I could walk there rather than getting the bus there, which I've done before and does add a lot of time onto your journey. And I think the main thing about living in London is obviously you want to be near the centre, near the hustle and bustle, and be easy to get to places that interest you, whether it be museums or markets or what have you. So living next to a tube station or your preferred method of transport here in London is really important. Once you've figured out kind of how far away from the centre you want to live, you need to consider your neighbourhood. Now, I think this is the hardest part about choosing where to live because the neighbourhoods in London vary so much, and it can be from like street to street is a completely different feel. So me personally, I have lived in Greenwich, I have lived in Dulwich, and I'm now living in Brixton. So I've had my fair share of like experiences around London neighbourhoods, and I think it does really depend on just what you're looking for and the kind of vibe you like. So in terms of Greenwich, it was quite quiet, quite a small little, almost, I call it a village, small little town. It felt like it was very kind of in itself and very cute with bespoke shops and nice parks and things. Dulwich was very similar. It was very residential, kind of like a family area of London, I want to say, because it was a little bit further out in southeast London. And then Brixton is like the complete opposite of Dulwich in the sense like it's very busy. There's a lot of different people around. There are a lot of shops around, whether it be fun restaurants or new pop-ups and things like that. It's very lively, it's quite noisy, it can get quite dirty, but it's just the phase in life I wanted to embrace here in Brixton. So definitely things to consider. I've only personally ever lived in South London, but obviously you've got North London, you've got East London, you've got West London. All of them have a very different feel and a different price tag, but we'll get into that a little later. But it is really important to consider what activities and hobbies you want to have in your new neighbourhood, how you want to feel in your new neighbourhood, maybe if you want to park nearby. All of those kind of things will really help dictate whereabouts in London you want to live. Another great tip I personally have done is spend the day there. I know it's not always possible, especially if you're moving from abroad, especially in today's circumstances, but if you can spend the day in your neighbourhood, definitely do. I did it for Greenwich when I went to look around my student accommodation. I was able to kind of check out the local shops, visit the park, see where I would be doing my food shop, all of those kind of things, just so you already feel a little more settled in the area. We also did it in Dulwich. We went out actually on my birthday to go have breakfast there, walk around the park again, because they were things that were really important to us, like being able to go out for nice food and having a nice park to visit, which turned out to be a very, very good thing during lockdown. And then Brixton, I'd been here a few times before on like girls' nights or out with my friends, so I knew like the restaurants and the bars were really good, which is what I was hoping to do living in this neighbourhood. It's also a great way to check kind of where your local shops are, how far the walk is to your local shops, how noisy it is, how, if you've got on a bus route, how noisy the bus is, what kind of people live around your area, potential neighbours you may have. All of those kind of things can be really useful if you just spend the day in the neighbourhood, get a feel for it, see whether it fits your criteria. Then a tip my mum will be very happy I'm sharing with you all is to check the crime rates. Now, I say this, obviously living in Brixton, the crime rates are quite high, but in the area we are in, we feel very safe and secure, and I'm very happy with where we live. So I would always take the crime rates with a pinch of salt. Obviously it's very important, but I think it's like a general area the crime rates do, so it's not like one particular street or anything, so just bear that in mind when you're looking. But it is really important just to have a check, just for peace of mind, to see what the crime rates are in your area, especially if you aren't able to visit or get a sense of the place or get a feel for the area. Looking at the crime rates of the local district or what have you is really important and can give you a very good idea of what to expect. Once all of that is said and done, and you kind of know the neighbourhood you want to live in, and you kind of know whereabouts in that neighbourhood you want to live, depending on where the tubes are and everything like that, you then need to figure out your budget, which is probably the hardest thing to do, especially with London prices. I know people who spend like over half of their wage on their rent, so figure out what works best for you. Try and come up with a number that, you know, is realistic for how much you're making at the moment, and especially if your work were to fall through for whatever reason, do you have enough to kind of pay the end of your contract? Another great way to figure out what kind of budget you're going to need for where you want to live is figure out what your necessities are. So do you need 1 bedrooms? Do you need 2 bedrooms? Are you just going for a flat or 1 bedroom in a flat, like a shared accommodation? Are you looking for a house? Do you need a garden? Do you need a parking space? Are you looking to have a bath or a shower? All of those kind of things, because obviously they do affect the price of a property depending on your neighbourhood. So definitely kind of write out a list of wants and then a list of needs and those necessities. Really keep those in mind when you're looking for an apartment, along with your budget, because the two really do go hand in hand. Then it's important to remember the extras, which no one likes to tell you about, but obviously rent very rarely includes bills, so you also have bills on top of your rent. You'll also have your holding deposit, or the deposit, which I think is like 1 or 2 months in advance for when you're putting your deposit down on the potential apartment you're living in, which eventually you will get back if you haven't like messed up the apartment or broken anything. But obviously that's money you have to give up front right away, so it's important to know how much that is. You also then have things like council tax, or if you'll need a parking permit, and all of those kind of things. So it's very important to measure all those up, see what the total price is going to be at the end of all of the costs, and you can go ahead and ask the letting agent what they think the bills will likely be in an apartment or a house like that, and you can find the council tax bands on the government website. So when you finally found some places, you filtered down some of your options, whether you're using like Rightmove or Zoopla or however you're hoping to find your apartment. I personally love Rightmove. That's how we found the house I'm currently sat in, so I'm a big fan of them. But whatever suits you best, whatever you prefer using, you will then have to go in and book in your viewings. Now hopefully it will be in person. Obviously you can do it virtually if you aren't able to look around in person, but when you're there, make sure you take lots of photos and videos, or save the videos and photos that you get sent, just because it can get very confusing if you're looking around a lot of places at once and you'll think you remember something, or you'll want to revisit something, and you can't always necessarily book in a second visit because houses go so fast in London. The turnaround is very quick, so you kind of want to be able to make a decision there and then, perhaps even take your passport and documentation with you on the viewings, just in case if you do decide there and then like, this is the place for me, this is where I want to live, you can go ahead and start signing documents and getting your references across to the letting agent. Then the next step is obviously going to be your contract, which can be very overwhelming because it's a very large document. So I will say, if you are moving for the first time to London, definitely get someone to check over your contract who just knows a little bit more. It could be an older friend or a sibling or even a parent. Just get them to have a proofread of it just to check that everything's in order. They are usually pretty good, but sometimes they can sneak a few little things in there that can be concerning, about like maintenance or extra fees or move out fees and things like that, so just bear that in mind. The thing I always like to add or see if I can negotiate into the contract is a break clause. Now usually letting agents and rental properties in London will have a 12-month contract, if not longer, which basically means you are booked into that contract, you are staying in that house for 12 months, and if you want to move out before that, perhaps at 8 months or 6 months or what have you, you will have to pay the other month's rent that you are breaking your contract on, which could be a lot of money, I don't mind telling you. So I always try and implement a 6-month break clause. You could even try and negotiate one for smaller than that, but I find most landlords are happy with a 6-month break clause, and all that means is at 6 months, if I decide to move, if we decide to move out, we can do, and we're not breaking our contract and we don't owe anyone any money because that clause is already built into the contract and the landlord has agreed to that, which basically just means if you've been living here for maybe 4 months and you decide actually the neighbourhood isn't for you, or actually you think you're going to move home, or you want to move job and you need to live in a different area, you can kind of figure that out and get out of your contract, because I think we know now more than ever, no one necessarily knows what their life is going to look like in a year's time, and a year is a very long time, especially when you're young living in London, to dedicate to one apartment. So definitely try and put in a break clause in there just in case you change your mind or want to explore some other options. The last step once you have signed your contract and are moving into your apartment is the inventory check, which is so important because they can really catch you out with an inventory check. All it is a list of everything in the house. I'm talking light switches, radiators, the scratches on the wall, the dents in the carpet, whatever it is, should all be written down on this big sheet of paper, and you just have to go across to everything, mark any extra like scratches or anything that they haven't written down, take photos of everything just so that you have evidence, you have proof of what the apartment looked like before you moved in. And I'm talking like close-ups of scratches and like windowsills and bits of damp or whatever. Like take photos, everything, write it all down, and you will have to sign that inventory list along with your landlord just to make sure you're both happy with the state of the house once you've moved in, and that way they have something to look back on. So when you move out and they see a scratch on the wall, they may be like, oh, you have to pay to paint that, and then you can go back to the inventory list and your photo evidence and be like, actually that scratch was already here, and you have something to back it up with, which is super important because especially when you're young, people tend to take a little bit of advantage, especially landlords who may be a little bit money hungry, so you really want that evidence to be able to back you up and just be prepared for any situation. But yeah, they are all my tips for things to consider before moving to London and things I learned along the way, which I really wanted to share with you. I hope you have found this video very useful and have got some practical tips to take away with you. If you are hoping to move to London or are currently looking around properties, good luck. I wish you the very best time looking around them, and I really hope you find what you're looking for. If you did enjoy this video and want to see more videos like this, be sure to hit the thumbs up and don't forget to subscribe down below because I post new videos every Sunday. Hopefully I'll see you very soon. Bye.